Good morning, everyone. I'm Helen Derpinghouse, and I'm the Deputy Provost, formerly the Dean of Undergraduate Studies. When all of this advising conversation began, that was my role, and I've continued to be a part of this special project of the university. I want to thank you for coming. I do realize this is advisement time, and I also realize it's lunchtime, and so on both of those fronts, thanks for making the sacrifice. I think we should give an award to Dr. Gwen Guidell for coming at 11 o'clock. She's the longest arriving person here. Fortunately, you had your electronics with you and could work. And I'd also like to thank Joe and Mac for recording the session. The session today will be recorded so that we can use this as a way to share information with those who weren't able to attend. When you came in, you should have received two handouts. One handout is the PowerPoints we'll go through. We gave you those as a way to free you up to listen and ask questions. It's easier to make notes, I think, than to try to write down lots of info. And I'd also like to thank the staff from the University Advising Center that's helping make today possible. Beth Ann Rogers in our office has also been a key player, so if you would help me thank those folks, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to begin today by introducing you to someone that most of you probably know very well, Dr. Loren Knapp. He is the Associate Dean in the College of Arts and Sciences, and he is the go-to person for advising, and he has been a leader across campus with the Associate and Assistant Deans with the University Advising Network, and no doubt countless other service engagements. So, Loren, why don't you take a minute?
Hi, everybody. Just do this so I don't have to go up on stage. For those of you who don't know me, I am Loren Knapp. Most of you do know me, or if you don't know me by face-to-face interactions, you know me by judgments that I've made and emails that you've gotten and support that you've gotten throughout the many years that you've been here. I think that the college has unique challenges facing itself in regards to the advising and new technologies that are coming to us. And I think I said to many of you who I invited as well to come here that it should be both interesting and informative. So hopefully it'll prove to be both. So welcome here today, and thanks, Helen, and all your crew for supporting advising at USC.
Thanks, Loren. And I'd also like to acknowledge Dean Roger Sawyer, sitting on the front row. He tells me he used to advise undergraduates. He advises graduate students now, and he also advises countless faculty, deans, provosts, and et cetera. So thanks for being here today, Roger. My hope today is that we can talk about what's going on with advising at the university in a way that is coherent, that starts with a global picture and moves down to some details and some changes that are underway. I'm going to begin with an overview sort of where we are, and then Dr. Claire Robinson, the new director of the University Advising Center, will talk about some specific initiatives, and Stacy Bradley will talk with us about technology, and then we'll have time for Q&A. There's a microphone here if you want to come up and talk at any time. And when we finish making our presentation, when we finish being in the recording, we'll come down so we can have more dialogue than we do in this kind of arrangement. I want to begin with a 30,000-foot level of what's going on. In the last decade, there have been lots of changes at the University of South Carolina. As you know, in 2008, there was a big drop in state funding. Instead of the state paying for 40% of university costs, it's down to a little less than 10%, and that changes things. One way we see this is that we've become more tuition-driven, so we have growing enrollments, and you all, no doubt, have felt the brunt of that in many ways. Interestingly, the quality of our students has gotten stronger. We are one of only a handful of universities in the nation that has gotten bigger and has had average SAT track upward. In the last decade, it's risen on average 100 points, and it's really an impressive thing here at USC. In addition, we've done better with retaining our freshman to sophomore students, and our graduation rates have improved. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? How did we do this? And if you ask President Pastides that, he would say it's the quality of the student experience. If we ask many of you and many staff and faculty across campus, they would also probably be able to tell you stories of how they have worked to strengthen the quality of the student experience. The slide here shows several things. It shows how USC has done with its retention rate. That's the garnet line. You can see we tracked upward and we've kind of plateaued. You see where our target is. That target was set by the Board of Trustees. You can see where our peers are. They're above that line, and our aspirant colleges, our universities, are above that. So we're doing well, but we need to do something about the plateau. The reason retention is so important is because when we admit students who can succeed, and so we need to put things in place to make their success possible. The families today, the state government, the national government, regulators, loan officers, all the people who are involved in college and university want to see and believe we need to show that retention is something that's getting better. From our point of view, it's easier to retain a student than to recruit and admit a new one. Our 6-year graduation rates have also gone up. We're below our peers and peer aspirants. We're not headed quite where the target trajectory is, so we want to do something about that as well. What do we do to continue to improve the quality of the student experience? The profile of incoming students is changing. On average, they're less academically prepared. More of them are first-generation students, so more is going to be needed from us to support these students. The literature and the experience across the country shows that we need to do something. We've already addressed some academic and curricular changes that were needed with gen ed and with program majors. We've added integrated and experiential learning, which has really helped a lot of our students, especially those who are not our students with the highest GPAs. We're improving with diversity and inclusion and campus climate. Our Student Success Center has become bigger and stronger in the last decade. The last thing we need to do is advising. We need to strengthen advising to support students and to support student success at USC. This slide shows the College of Arts and Sciences. And the College of Arts and Sciences, as Lauren mentioned a minute ago, is the largest college and it's the most complex. It's home to 19 core academic disciplines and 53 interdisciplinary programs, centers, institutes, and schools. It's a complex college. You all know that because that's where you live. The provost, Michael Amaritas, in 2013, talked with the president, and together they decided something needed to be done to strengthen advising. They established an advising coordinating task force. It was made up of faculty, staff, and student reps. The first thing the task force did was survey advisors and students about what was going on with advising. Hundreds of people responded. In addition, the task force benchmarked with national best practices, and out of that process came 6 recommendations. We're going to talk about these today. One was to establish a university advising center and to identify first-year advisors so that when students came in, they would have consistent advising across campus. Second recommendation was to support the colleges and schools in what they were doing. Every college and school handles advising a little bit differently. The third thing was to have a training and certification program so that advisors would be well informed, to better use technology and online resources to improve efficiency and effectiveness, to include faculty in advising through faculty-led programs. If we move toward a more professional advising model, how do faculty fit? Well, they have a very important role, and we need to explore and establish that. And sixth, we need to make sure that students are responsible for what happens. These 6 recommendations went to Council of Academic Deans, were discussed at Faculty Senate, were discussed at the Board of Trustees. As recently as January of 2016, just a couple of months ago at the Board of Trustees retreat, advising again came up. So the board hears about this across the state and from their constituents as well. The education guru George Koo says the quality of academic advising is the single most powerful predictor of satisfaction with the campus environment for students at four-year schools, and this was based on his research. USC has a new 10-year strategic plan. If you went to the President's State of the University address last fall, you would have heard this. He talked about priorities for the university, and he identified advising as a top priority for institutional improvement. In the last 6 months, we have established the University Advising Center to provide resources, training, services, and assessment so we know how we're doing. I want to show you a 2-minute clip from the president. Okay. Jane, how do I click on this? I don't just touch the screen. Oh, I got it now. Oh, sorry.
We're crafting a plan called Carolina 2025, a plan that will take our university into the century's 3rd decade. Our planning has always been and will continue to be purposeful, not accidental. The major components will focus, as they always have, on the quality of the student experience. We soon discovered that our own students identified advising as their top priority for institutional improvement. This past July, we opened a new University Advising Center. This year, we plan to hire 25 more first-year advisors. They'll help to improve student retention, academic progression, and decrease time to graduation. Carolina 2025 will call for an expansion of our faculty with the goal of 25 net new professors a year through the next decade, in addition to replacing faculty who retire or resign.
So 2025 calls for planned growth of student enrollment, and it calls for planned growth in faculty hiring, and it also calls for investment in advising, among other things. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on nationally, what's going on at the university, and the level of commitment that the university feels to this. Are there any questions before I go on? Clarification? I have so much on my mind, I'm not sure I'm giving all the details I need to be clear, so feel free to jump in. Okay, arts and sciences. I thought you might like to see a little bit of survey information that we got from advisors and students related to the college. And I'm not going to belabor these graphs. I'm just going to go through them real quickly, and you can look at them later since you have a packet. But 86% of faculty advisors advise fewer than 50 students. 33% of faculty advisors do not enjoy advising. They said that advising was not an effective use of their time. Almost half of them felt that way. This chart shows that 43% of the advisors said they did not feel well trained. This deals with choosing Carolina core courses, and 52% of advisors felt somewhat or not competent in the Carolina core. And of course, that's concerning not only because they're seeing 40% of our students or more, but because the Carolina core lives in the College of Arts and Sciences for the most part. There are two quotes you might want to look at later. I'll just read a third. I can read the requirements out of the bulletin, and I'm at least mostly sure that I'm not screwing up, but I don't actually genuinely know anything about any of these courses. I'm embarrassed to be asked for advice on this matter. That was from an advisor. This bar graph shows that advisors are comfortable choosing courses in the major. They feel responsible for this role. They feel competent. They do it often, and they think it's important. So that seems to be the piece that the advisors are feeling comfortable with. 26% of faculty advisors and 10% of staff advisors report never referring students to beyond the classroom opportunities. Now this, of course, could be because they don't see that as their role. It could be because they don't feel informed, but the downbeat is that we look at beyond the classroom learning or experiential learning or integrated learning or USC Connect, any of those terms you might hear. It's a hallmark of the Carolina education, and we count on advisors to ask students about that. This slide asks about other campus resources. And referring students to places like the Student Success Center, Career Center, or Counseling Center is really important, and over half of the advisors said that they don't do this. We really need to increase these referrals, and we need to change the culture. We want to formalize the referral process so that it's easier for you. We want to track the type and frequency of referrals between advisors and offices on campus, and then close the loop to see if the students are really going. Why does this matter so much? Well, we're concerned about retention, and when students leave, we ask them why they're leaving. 57% say they leave for personal reasons, and personal reasons would include, I didn't feel connected to the university. I had health problems or roommate problems or judicial problems, or there was a family crisis. And we look to the advisor as a touchstone for identifying and then referring these students. So we need to better understand what's going on there. This quote reflects a reality. Advising has become so incredibly complicated here at USC. It is just mind-blowing in terms of the ins and outs and options. The jaw-dropping complexity of it is very much impossible to master from the point of view of professors who teach the proper number of students and engage in research and creative production. It seems more like it should be a full-time job for a dedicated professional. So this surveyed faculty member is reflecting something that we all have heard, I'm sure, and it's a dilemma that we have. I'm sure there are people in the room that think it should be all professional staff, and people in the room who are faculty and love advising. Michael Amaritas was one of those, and we need to figure out a model that works. I want to talk a little bit about advisor training and certification. We had to get started, we had to jump start that really, because as the president said, we hired 25 new first-year advisors. Those are advisors, professional advisors that deal with first-year students. We have to get a training and certification program in place. And the first thing we did was had something called Advisor Quick Start. This was just an overview module to make sure that we were all on the same page. I think of a book, you know, there's a preface to the book, there's a beginning front matter, and that's really what this Advisor Quick Start was. Well, I want to share with you the results from this. If If you look at the far right column at the end, the first thing I noticed is that arts and sciences is a heck of a lot bigger than everybody else. It's bigger and more complex, and that's a challenge. When you look at the smaller colleges, you can see that they've been able to have all of their advisors engage in the module and get all of the questions correct. When people taking the module miss a question, we encourage them to go back and view that part of the module and take that question again so they can get a perfect score. That's the way we can make sure that all of the points that are covered there are something that advisors have been exposed to. We also found, with the tracking software today, we could see how long people engaged with the module, and not surprisingly, we found for us the same thing we find for our students, that the amount of time spent with the teaching resource, with the module, correlated strongly with the number of answers that we got right. I know that happened for me. The purpose, of course, of the module is to reduce misadvisement across campus and improve advisor knowledge, something the survey told us that advisors wanted. And so we think it's really important to start planning to engage with these modules as they come out. This cartoon is one that I really like. In a given day, I'm rushing from one thing to the next, and I know you all are too, especially this time of year. And so this is the guy with the square wheel who doesn't have time to change the tire. And what I'm hoping is that if we take a little time to change the tire, the result will be more than worth it. So let's talk for a few minutes about advising students in their first year. What can you expect here? What's going on here? The advisors for first-year students are going to have to pass 8 modules. When you came in today, one of your handouts is the plan for all the different training modules, and the dessert, if you will, is at the bottom of the page where it shows when you pass the training modules that you get some resources. You get to go to a local, state, or national meeting, to the National Advising Conference, and so we recognize that you'll be putting work into this training and certification, and that will be a direct benefit, some professional development support for you all. But if you're going to work with first-year students, you have to pass 8 modules. They're going to be launched in August of 2016. It's going to take some time to do those. Advisement begins in October. The advisors who go through this, the completion rate and where you are with training and certification for staff models is part of your EPMS. And for the first year advisors who are faculty, the results will be passed back to the deans. The reason for this is that we've all been at Carolina long enough. I've been here almost 30 years, and even if you've only been here 30 days, you know that at Carolina, like everywhere else in the world, you have to inspect what you expect. And if we expect people to engage training time in these modules, then we have to inspect. We have to find a way to check and see if this is happening, to respond to you if you have problems, and to make it better as you go through the process. The dean's advisors will be working with Dr. Knapp in June for a transition planning meeting. And when all of our first-year students come to campus, they will see on Self-Service Carolina who their first-year advisor is. That's the name that they'll get. So it's important that we be coordinated and work together on this. The last thing I want to talk about is something called curricular mapping and degree audit. And I'm not an advisor, so I've learned a lot in the last couple of years. about national best practices. And I'll tell you, I hear about this at every meeting I go to for deans of undergrad studies. Right now, we are the only school in the SEC that does not offer our students a degree audit system. What is a degree audit system? A degree audit system, in my words, is where a student can sit down with parents or friends and pull up information that says what courses the student has taken and what the student still has to take in order to complete the degree. That's degree audit. What's finished, what's still ahead. And this is something that parents across the country expect. When we're the only school in the SEC that doesn't offer this, we stand out in a way that we don't want to stand out. Our degree audit system is called DegreeWorks, and many of you have been working hard to get DegreeWorks functioning in your areas. And May 16th, all students at USC will have access to DegreeWorks. We're focusing on the incoming class. We're focusing on the first-year students, because what we've seen is when students come in and learn, they're not going to have problems. And the upper class students can also jump on too, but we want to start with our class of 2020. We're also going to have some technology related to curricular mapping, and Stacy will talk about that in a few minutes. Curricular mapping is something that's also widespread across the country. It simply means that a student can go to an academic bulletin and see courses that have to be taken in order to complete the degree. It lays out a map. Some universities will have a very cute picture that kind of looks like Candyland, you know, how you go through the roads to get to your degree. Others are more bulletin-like, but having a curricular map is also standard practice. It's really important. If you look in Guidelines for Advising, it has a very important statement on the first page. The ultimate responsibility is with the students. And of course, I think we'd all agree with that. Students need to take responsibility. But if students don't have a clear pathway, if it's not clear to them and to their parents what they need to take and when they're going to finish, it's difficult to expect them to take responsibility. This summer, our new curricular, what is the title? Curricular coordinator, I knew it was a C word. The new curricular coordinator will start mapping, and this will be all across the university. Some colleges and programs have fairly well-developed maps already because there's not a lot of choice. I think of engineering. I think of the business curriculum, nursing curriculum. These are very straightforward. Some of these colleges already have maps, but we need to do this for every major. There needs to be a decision tree and a map, and faculty need to take a look and make sure that matches their curricular expectation. We know there's some frustration about this with DegreeWorks, which is degree audit. Degree audit and curricular maps do operate in black and white. And when we have majors with shades of gray, it doesn't fit. And that's the reason we have to start articulating the choices and listing the choices so that students can navigate. Is this just something that we make up? Are we just trying to make life difficult? The answer is no. SACS knows how important it is for students and families to understand curriculum. They require that the academic bulletin provide a list of all the programs and associated coursework needed. At the reaccreditation, prior to my coming over to the provost's office, SACS actually wrote USC up because we had what they called shadow systems. Departments had, back then, Xerox or pamphlets that told how to advise how to get through a curriculum. And the problem with shadow systems is that they're not the same from one office to the next. One office might update and the other doesn't. Or a student might get information from one and not from the other. We need a common source document. And SACS requires that. We're coming up for our 5th year visit in 2017, and so this summer the curricular coordinator is going to start on the pathways and start getting this into the bulletin so that the bulletin can be a useful document for everybody. That will be the source document for how we navigate majors. Okay, Claire's going to come up and talk a little bit more about the Advising Center and first year advising. Any questions for me? We'll have Q&A at the end also. Okay, great.
Hello, everyone. I also want to thank you for being here today and talking about all of the new things that we have going on with academic advising. I'm going to share with you some specific things related to the University Advising Center as well as our first year advisor program that we have underway. So when people ask me, they say, Claire, what are you doing in the University Advising Center? What are your goals? What's your plan? I always refer back to these 6 things that Dr. Dorpinghouse mentioned. We have 6 recommendations that were launched to the advising community and the community at large last April 29th, 2015. So we are coming up on the 1-year mark of these 6 recommendations, and we have really not deviated from these things. This is our plan, this is our blueprint. We are trying to live and breathe everything that is outlined here. And so we do have a couple copies of those recommendations if anyone would like them for reference, but these are the 6 guiding principles for us. So again, as a reminder, we opened in July of 2015. We're on the first floor of Close Hip. We have a very easy website, sc.edu/advising, and our phone number is listed there. And the purpose of this office is really to provide leadership on advising campus-wide. So what does that mean? Well, we're taking a good long look at our current advising policies and practices, helping to establish expectations for students, supporting advisors. We know we need to do a better job of supporting advisors through training and professional development opportunities. Looking at streamlined technology. Advisors are currently asked to use a lot of different technology, so we really want to think about workflow, and then helping, of course, to support our faculty in their role with this as well. So when you think about the University Advising Center, we kind of have 6 main areas that we're focusing on. We have our services, which has been in existence for a while, things like major change advising and our academic coaching, working with at-risk students. Of course, we're taking a long look at transfer advising and first-year advising. That's probably the biggest initiative we have going on right now with hiring of 25 new first-year advisors. And then our advisor training and technology support. So there's really kind of 3 main focus areas. Our 4-year student support. These are the services that we offer students. When students come to Close Hip and meet with somebody here in the building with the Advising Center, it's working with all 4-year students in those capacities. Of course, our first-year support, again, being our largest initiative with hiring 25 new people to serve in this role. And then our academic advisor support. So what can we do to help support advisors through training and certification? So I want to talk a little bit about the first-year advisor model. In hiring 25 of these folks, I think we hit the 18 mark just last week. So we hope to have all 25 in place by May 2nd. We are going to follow the National Academic Advising Association, or NACADA, their recommendation, where we're capping caseloads at 300. So no first-year advisor will have more than 300 advisees assigned to them. This enables the advisor to work with each student approximately 4 hours per year. That does not necessarily mean it's 4 hours of in-person meeting, but what it does mean is it enables an advisor to really know their caseload very closely and use the technologies that are available to them, call, intervene if that student is going off course, and to provide an opportunity for more one-on-one support. When we surveyed students, we found that the vast majority, 80+%, said they met with their advisor one time for less than 15 minutes, and that they wanted more than this, especially in the first year where we know this is such a huge period of transition for them. And so just wanted to share this quote that, lots of research has been done about the effect of academic advising on a student's transition. And so this talks about advising should be woven into the fabric of the freshman year in ways that promote student development and that provide clear, consistent, and accurate information. Quite simply, good advising should not be left to chance. So this is why we're really looking at the first year and trying to resource this program. So this is the position description of our first-year advisors, and we do have a couple in the room here that are working with arts and sciences. And what I want to draw your attention to is that 80% of their position is academic advising, which means that this equates to about 30 hours a week or 450 hours over the course of a 15-week semester. So the feedback that we were getting from students saying that their advisor wasn't available when they needed to meet with them or they wanted to meet with them for more than 15 minutes, we really feel like this model is going to address that head on. These advisors are available and will be, again, doing a lot of outreach in addition. Of course, monitoring and technology. This is a big part of the first-year advisor role. We have several technologies that either are available to students and advisors currently or they will be, and this is embedded in their position description, so they get very familiar with these technologies and are able to use them and really help sophisticate our discussions with students. Training and development. We've got a large program underway. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then about 5% is assigned college operations, so working with Dr. Knapp and anything in particular that's relevant specifically to arts and sciences. So Stacy Bradley's kind of talking a little bit about the technology and online resources, but the thing that I'd like to emphasize is that we are honing in on 3. There are a lot of technologies out there, and where we're heading is that we're going to work with these 3 for advising. That's Self-Service Carolina, DegreeWorks, which is our degree audit. That is going live to students on May 16th. Students will have access to that program. And then our Educational Advisory Board, our EAB platform. And again, Stacy Bradley will talk about those in a moment. So advisor training and certification. As Dr. Dorpinghouse mentioned, we just launched the first one in January for our first online module. We really came out the gate with fairly high expectations on this. We're covering 7 different competency areas, and it does have a quiz that follows the module. And why are we doing this? Because we know that academic advising is the only structured service on the campus in which all students have the opportunity for ongoing one-to-one contact with a concerned representative of the institution. So we want to make sure that our advisors are feeling resourced and have ability to understand all the different things that are expected of them. And this helps illustrate a little bit of the complexity that our advisors are supposed to know. We see here that advising challenges manifest differently across institutional types depending on the curricular complexity, and you can see that ours falls into high curricular complexity. Add in the fact that the advisor role is changing. What you see here in the blue is the more traditional advisor role. Several decades ago, the idea was all academic advisors did, or folks who were doing advising, was focus on course planning and registration and what students need to do to progress to degree. Well, that role is expanded substantially. Lots of added responsibilities, and you see new emerging trends. Advisors are expected to do a lot more beyond just course planning and registration. So how do you reconcile emerging trends in advisor expectation with this curricular complexity? Again, you have to have really robust training programs. So in your packet, you have a very large sheet that this is a screenshot of that shows you the training and certification program that we have underway. We have our kind of advisor orientation or advisor foundations. This is really what the Quick Start module addressed, those kind of 7 competency areas. Then you see Level 1. This will be available in August, and again, it will be a requirement for advisors of first-year students to complete Level 1. And then we are launching Level 2, Level 3, and Level 4 in December. So this is where we're headed. This is still kind of in a draft form. Of course, there's lots and lots that needs to be thought about and added to this. But I think the takeaway here is that advising is complex, and as the quote said earlier, we cannot leave it up to chance. We have to really make sure we're being strategic with our advising training. I did want to point out that sixth recommendation talked about the student responsibility. Students have responsibility for their educational planning, and they need to come into advisement prepared. So we are going to take a look at ways to do more education for our students. What kinds of things should they be looking at? They need, how can they become familiar with the academic bulletin? How can they use the degree audit system to be better advisees? There's lots of ways that our students need to come into advisement prepared. So this is a first attempt at an advising syllabus. This has been available, but do know that we are taking a look at that for students as well. The other thing I want to mention, in your packet, you have a color-coded sheet that looks like this. And this is the assignment, the planned assignment that we have for the 10 first-year advisors who will be assigned to the College of Arts and Sciences. So again, as the president mentioned, we're hiring 25. 10 of those 25 are assigned specifically to the College of Arts and Sciences. So what we've done is looked at what we're calling cluster majors. So what kinds of majors are related to each other, and assigning the first-year advisors based on that cluster. So you can see Advisor 1 will have a series of majors, Advisor 2, 3, 4, etc. The numbers that are included in this are the fall of 2015 enrollment numbers, and this includes first-year students and transfer students. And then in the parenthesis next to it, you'll see the predicted caseload. Again, all of these are below that 300 recommendation that NACADA suggests, and we are very much hoping that everyone in this room will connect with your first-year advisor. It is really imperative that the first-year advisors know you, know your departments, work with you, make sure that we have really clear lines of communication. So a couple things about summer 2016 orientation. Dr. Knapp has been integral in this. We are, of course, hiring all of these folks, hope to have them in place by May 2nd. We know that we need to approach summer orientation the same way that we've done it in previous years, and that these 10 first-year advisors will be more kind of hands on deck, right? More resources, more people to help with getting through orientation. So Dr. Knapp is really spearheading this, and we're going to operate the same way we have in previous summers. We are going to really do some streamlined messaging to the incoming class about the first-year advisor program. They're going to know about this at orientation. We hope to show a picture of all 25 of them, make sure that they know that they will have one point of contact, and that person will be reaching out to them. And again, the first-year advisors themselves will do a fair amount of outreach. Fall and spring advisement. So as we really start to implement this, again, these first-year and transfer students will be assigned their first-year advisor and banner. They will have between May 2nd when they start and October 1st to be completely clear on your curriculums and your pathways. Again, we are very much looking forward to DegreeWorks being launched, and this will enable both our students and first-year advisors to get that knowledge base. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy. She's going to talk more about technology.
Thanks, Claire. Since we've now passed from morning to afternoon, I will jump right into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about technology, as both Helen and Claire mentioned, focusing on the 3 tools that are in the vision for advising technology. The best part about that statement is there is an institutional vision for advising technology. I think one of the challenges we've had in the past is that there have been a lot of systems and a lot of tools, and we've thought that just throwing another technology at advising was a solution versus working on our processes and integrating those technologies and streamlining them down to what's essential to really serve our students. So that's where we are. To give you a little bit of background, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Self-Service Carolina because you're probably most familiar with that. But I will talk about EAB, the EAB Education Advisory Board Student Success Collaborative, and also a little bit about DegreeWorks. And Erin Murder is here from the Registrar's Office should you have DegreeWorks questions. EAB, the Education Advisory Board. As background about the company, they started within healthcare and then as a research enterprise, particularly best practice research, and then moved into higher education. There are over 1,000 member institutions in their best practice research forums. And we are one of those, but we also participate in the Student Success Collaborative, which is the technology tool, the advising technology tool that hopefully you've heard a little bit about. Before I talk, I'm going to jump right into the tools, but I also want to give two shout-outs to Lauren Knapp and Alan White, who have served on the leadership team for our EAB project since we started. So the first year was a lot of mapping and data validation, and then we started getting into the nitty-gritty of, okay, how's this going to work on our campus? So really appreciate the leadership from both of them, really from the ground. The two technologies the two tools that are provided by EAB are the predictive workbooks, and that is predicated on our historical data. So we loaded 4 years' worth of student data into their predictive model to determine major migration patterns, to determine critical courses. They'll also be termed success markers. For example, we could determine from our data that only 32% of biology students that earned a C in Biology 101 went on to graduate in biology. Well, that's something that is very helpful for advisors to know. So really highlighting those critical pieces of information that make it easier for an advisor in a snapshot to understand when a student may be at risk. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the predictive workbooks. I'm going to spend most of my time talking about the advising platform because that hopefully is what you all would actually use and engage with on a daily basis, though the workbooks obviously do inform the platform. The platform itself really provides us a way to identify at-risk students and to easily outreach to them or to refer them. And that is the primary focus. It also enables us to compare those students' performance to peers in some key skill areas, and also includes some major matching and career data. EAB partnered with Burning Glass, which is a company that has job posting and career information across the country to map careers to availability as well as potential salaries. The student overview page is probably the easiest and most effective aspect of the EAB platform in that it provides an easy snapshot of information. So you can easily see the number of D's and F's a student had, the number of withdrawals, the number of repeated courses. You can see a student's cumulative GPA broken down between their external GPA and their USC GPA. Same with their credits. You can see their credit completion in a snapshot. And one thing about the overview page is that the EAB platform is updated monthly. So where a lot of times we have a technology product and the vendor says, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, that is not the case here. So we provide feedback and there are monthly updates. So for example, the credit completion percentage, that was not on the overview page. I'm not even sure that it is on this snapshot that you see. It is today if you were to pull up the platform. So you could see right under total credits and sophomore, credit completion percentage. It's easy to see how a student is trending. So it becomes very obvious when a student is trending, unlike this example, when they are trending in a direction that is not so positive. So really that quick snapshot to give you a lot of key information, and the key information was developed based on what advisors have communicated to EAB over the last approximately 5 years that they've been in-depth researching what should be included here. I mentioned the success markers, the critical courses. This is an example of a success marker in chemistry. So Chem 112, chemistry determined from looking at the data that the recommended grade to be successful in chemistry was a B, and the student earned a C. So there's a notification. There's a success marker that pops up that's easy for the advisor to identify. We have at this point developed 58 success markers across the institution, some at the institution level, the college level, the major level, representing 44 courses. So, and we'll do more tomorrow. We're meeting with HRSM tomorrow. So the opportunity to expand that and really have information across the institution, I think is going to be helpful, not just for the students that are in your major now, but the students that are moving into your major, perhaps from other majors. This is the list feature is something that we've received a lot of feedback about in terms of value. So the ability for an advisor to go in and say, I want to see just my advisees, I want to see transfers, I want to see students that were first-time freshmen, I want to see honors students, capstone students, students with a certain GPA range. If you have progression requirements that involve a GPA threshold, who is hovering around that threshold that may need some attention or outreach, students that have predicted risk. So a lot of different ways you can slice and dice that information, and now you can actually upload, if you have a list of students from like a static data warehouse report, you can upload that list into EAB and create a watch list. So students that you want to keep an eye on for some particular reason. So you can create a dynamic list based on your own parameters, or you can upload a static list and track a number of students that for whatever reason you want to keep an eye on across semesters. Referrals. One of the things we realized early on was that the status features in EAB enable us to change a student's status. And we have used that to allow advisors to refer students to key offices on campus. So within the platform, an advisor can go in and change a student's status to referred to the advising center, referred to the career center, referred to the student success center. In fact, last week we added referred to pre-professional advising based on feedback. And what that means is that then the office that the referral was made to is running a list every day, and they're reaching out to that student. So whereas now we hope that if a student is referred to an office, that the student gets to that office, and then we hope that there is some type of engagement that is helpful to that student. Now there's a way within the system to make that referral, have that office make the contact, make the outreach, and then close that loop with the advisor. So the advisor knows, were you able to reach the student? What was the outcome? And there are notes within that referral feature, so that if they're helpful notes that you want to include for that office, you can do that as well. And this is just talking about that closed loop system. One piece of information in terms of future state is the EAB platform will be expanding to incorporate scheduling, so advisement scheduling, where we have SARS now as a separate tool. It will be incorporated within the existing EAB platform to simplify it, but also to make that a continuous process. So you identify a student that is at risk for whatever reason, or just needs to come in for an appointment. You initiate that communication in the system. The student can click on a link, see what available times they can sign up based on what you've determined as available, and schedule the appointment right then and there. And the same will be true for referrals. If you send a student to tutoring or you send a student to the advising center, they can click on a link and make that appointment immediately. So it takes out the lag time, and it takes out that separate process of emailing a student, hoping that they respond. There's email and text functionality. So that should be really helpful from the communication standpoint. Our focus in 2016, as we're rolling out across the campus, we have developed an implementation council. These are people who are on the ground every day in the system saying, this is working, this is not working as well. We're relying on this group to develop workflow because, as I mentioned before, it's great to have tools, but if the tools don't work together and we can't simplify the process, it's challenging. So simplifying the workflow, hopefully we're going to be able to identify a template for staff advising and a template for faculty advising that you can then customize. So that's the goal there. They're also working on training and development in conjunction with the advising center, and also on product development recommendations, so we can continue to give EAB our feedback and continue to see those changes. And Lauren Chapman, who is here, there she is in the back, she is the representative from Arts and Sciences on that implementation council. So she is a resource for you. Also, in terms of training, we've done a lot of in-person training. In-person training is not very scalable. So there are EAB modules, about 20 minutes total in length, that explain what I just outlined, probably a little bit more efficiently than I did. And we are piloting those with biology right now. And hopefully they will be an effective tool for training a large number particularly of faculty advisors, when getting people in a room for an hour just isn't realistic. But allowing them or enabling them to log on to online modules for 20 minutes is very feasible. So that's where we're headed. To date, we've trained over 200 advisors and student services staff. Ways to drive progress, learn more about EAB. There's a site, obviously, you have the handouts, but this presentation will be available. I mentioned that both Lauren and Alan, Lauren Knapp and Alan White, are serving on the leadership team. Contact them, contact Lauren Chapman, ask some questions, think about how this could be most useful within your department. Obviously, expectations, that's a big part of this, so expecting people to use it is really important in terms of the outcomes. And then identifying key faculty for the success marker development. So that's a really valuable tool, but those success markers have to be built out. And we don't want to build them out. We want you to look at the data and you to build them out based on your knowledge as well as what the data is telling us. I'm going to talk just a little bit about DegreeWorks. One thing just to clarify, EAB and DegreeWorks are complementary. So where EAB enables us to identify at-risk students and provides easy communication and outreach, DegreeWorks is that audit plan of what have I taken towards my degree requirements and what do I still need to take. So those tools will continue to be complementary and they do serve two different purposes. I've sort of already stolen the thunder on this one. What is a degree audit? Monitoring progress towards degree. I mean, you all have these slides. Assisting students. I think one of the keys is it changes the nature of the advising appointment. Students already have done this homework, and so they come in informed, and you don't have to spend your time helping them pick a schedule. You can spend your time having a more in-depth or more valuable conversation from your standpoint. And obviously, DegreeWorks allows what-ifs, exceptions, and substitutions. Currently, DegreeWorks is tracking progress for student athletes and for financial aid recipients for satisfactory academic progress, and beyond the classroom for graduation with leadership distinction, which that will obviously only expand in the future. From a strategic planning standpoint, a number of institutions use DegreeWorks to forecast course demand. And so as we move towards multi-year planning of student schedules, that will be very informative for you in terms of course planning and knowing that, that capacity is managed, capacity and demand. And then analysis of student degree completion in an aggregate way, providing you with some reports and information, and then identifying those non-returners that are near finishing. This is something that is really an opportunity because some quick outreach, maybe not even by you all, but outreach by were you to send a list of these students to the Student Success Center, to the Advising Center, some quick outreach to these students may get that degree completed. Currently, education, nursing, and HRSM are already using this, have already incorporated DegreeWorks into their advisement. There may be others since this slide was developed. And obviously, as both Claire and Helen have mentioned, students will have access in May of 2016. And I've already mentioned that it's currently used for graduation with leadership distinction and NCAA certification. Ways to drive progress relative to DegreeWorks. Preparing majors. I know May is only a month away, so hopefully that's well on its way. And then expecting advisors to use DegreeWorks as well, because as students and parents have access to it, there will be an expectation that, that we're all using it. And I will hand it back to Claire.
Begin thinking about curricular mapping. So again, we are going to be hiring a curriculum coordinator, hope to have that person here in May. And this summer, this person's going to be working with all the departments on mapping out their curriculums. And some have been using curriculum maps for a while, major maps for a while, and so we can use those as a springboard, but we do want you to be thinking about how clear your curriculum sequence is now. So basically turning what we have here in our guidelines book into a map. Complete the Quick Start training and module quiz if you have not done so already. It is available on Blackboard, and if you do not have access, you can get in touch with our office and we'll make sure to get you access. Subscribe to the Advisors Listserv. You have a little slip of paper on one of your packets that talks about what the Advisors Listserv is. It's a weekly announcement with really relevant information for any academic advisor. So faculty, staff, anybody who advises, we really encourage you to subscribe to that listserv. And if you haven't, you can sign up at the registration table before you leave today. And then finally, please contact us. I gave you the number of our training coordinator, Sarah McConneville, who's doing all of the training for our first-year advisors, to schedule a time and date to meet your first-year advisor. Again, that color-coded page has all of the majors that are together for each of the 10 first-year advisors. And if you will contact us, we would love for your first-year advisor to come to your department either May 5th or 6th or 12th or 13th. And if none of those dates work, let us know what dates do work, and we will work with your schedule. But they will be here ready, and we would love for them to come over and meet with you. So those are the next steps. And with that, I think we can move to Q&A. Do you want to come up, or how do we want to do this? Come.
Hi, I'm Brian Habing, the undergraduate director in the Department of Statistics. My question on the first-year advisement is if you picture them taking over that advisement role for the for the spring courses in the fall advisement period. Mm-hmm. And I'm picturing our department where we usually try to schedule a half-hour period because even if they've thought through, they have trouble. And so it makes me worry about the recommended 300 students because in that 4-week span, there's exactly 300 half-hour appointments, which makes it impossible. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really worried about poor advisors, number 6 and 7, mm-hmm. and if they're actually going to be able to meet with all of their students in those 4 weeks or not.
Yes, excellent question. Yes, the advisement period we expect will expand because we are requiring our first-year advisors to have 30-minute appointments. Sounds very similar to your model. And in order for us to, of course, meet with all those students for a 30-minute period, that means that we're going to have to back up when we begin. So what we've done is we've looked at other schools that have a very similar model to this and have found the kinds of outreach and things that they do to make sure that these students are coming in early. Again, we're going to start this messaging this summer at orientation, and I think by setting the student expectation early that, this is your point person, you need to be coming in early and meeting with these people, we feel fairly confident modeling this after other schools will be able to meet the demand. Great question, though.
So the follow-up then is that all of the departments will need to have their course schedules worked out a month earlier than they do now, and the register will have the bulletin updated a full month or two earlier than they do now to make that possible?
I guess I would look around the room. Aaron Martyr.
I guess I can answer that question.
Please do, thank you.
I know this year we had a calendar, we have a bulletin calendar, an academic calendar that's set, and it's designed so that the bulletin is released at the end of February. We fell a little bit behind this year because we moved to a new platform for our bulletin, so I've been working with Marianne Burns, and I think we're working through some of the final things in arts and sciences to make sure everything in the bulletin is correct. So we're a little late this year due to that change in the platform. As far as the schedule is concerned, we are being asked to publish that earlier and earlier every year. One of the big pushes was for the Honors College to have that available. I want to say for the spring we had it out at the end of February. I don't know if that gives you the adequate amount of time to begin that advisement process, but we had it out there published in February. So,
yeah. If you have a question, if you'll please come use the microphone.
Hi, I'm Chandini Sankaran, and I'm the undergrad director from the economics department. And as you know, economics is in 2 schools, in the business school as well as in the College of Arts and Sciences. Mm-hmm. So we were wondering how you got these enrollment numbers of 58 on the sheet, because that's not correct. Mm-hmm. We have about 270 arts and sciences econ majors. we might have 58 business econ majors who have declared business econ as their first major, but majority of the business econ majors pick up business econ as their second major. So I was just wondering, how would we get the numbers on the second majors?
Sure.
And that's been a problem with advising,
Sure.
too, because our advising listserv for arts and sciences only gives us the first majors and not the second majors.
Sure, sure. And just to confirm, those are first-year students and transfer students, the numbers that you're, because that list, okay. I think, we obviously want to make sure we have the accurate enrollment numbers for first-year and transfer students in all of those majors. So if that's one in particular, we need to go back and look at how the data is being pulled, then we'll do that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Will academic advising for first-year students be like a 9 to 5 time period, or will it be extended hours? Because I advise a lot of the first-year students for chemistry and biochemistry, and most of mine come after 6 p.m.
Sure.
And so I see between 6 p.m. and sometimes even 11 o'clock at night, I see students.
Yeah.
So is that going to be
Yes,
a
it is
possibility?
written in their position description that evening hours may be required, and we anticipate that. We know the ebb and flow of advisement, and we know there are, weeks where it's, really, really heavy, and then weeks where, it starts to ease up a bit. So yes, our advisors will definitely be advising at night in order to meet demand.
And schedules that have labs.
Yes.
So sometimes they don't have time to come.
Yes. Great question. Thanks.
Hi, I'm the undergraduate director in geography. Sometimes DegreeWorks categorizes our major courses and puts them in the social sciences box for core courses. And I understand that when I advise students, but I imagine that parents and students, when they see DegreeWorks, are going to experience a lot of anxiety and questions about things that seem wrong to them. Is it going to be possible for directors to go in and be able to reallocate those courses directly, or is there going to be a system for directing all of those questions to a place where they can be answered and corrected right at the dean's office?
Great. I'm going to defer to our DegreeWorks gurus.
I can't speak necessarily to the curriculum requirements, but oftentimes the way that those courses are allocated has to do with the rules that are designed kind of around that mapping. And so if upper level courses are ending up in lower division, then perhaps a rule needs to be written to always force those into the major. But I think that's one of the questions. I mean, I don't have the answer for that, but I think that part of the curriculum mapping project will be to flesh out some of those types of things. For example, mapping projects at other universities, they go through and really specify with each course requirement, what is the minimum grade? Sometimes that's just not available in the bulletin or in documents. Or what is a critical path course? That would be a course that if you do not pass that course, you can't move to another course in a sequence. And so just by putting that out in kind of a map and formatting that, sometimes some of those issues are articulated there, and then you can make decisions about what you want to do for organizing things in DegreeWorks.
Did you have something? Yeah.
Just so you know, my office and several of my colleagues in Flynn Hall are working on DegreeWorks right now and trying to get everything fitted into its proper place. So we've worked on all of the core requirements, VSR and overlays, and we're now starting to work in the next week or so on majors themselves. If there are any insights that you can give us from the ground in your departments or programs, the person to contact for the liberal arts side of the college would be Dawn Hiller, who's sitting right here, and most people know her. If you don't, you would be well to get to know her with DegreeWorks. And in the science side, which would be math and statistics as well as the sciences, would be Jennifer Shiver in my office. So when you find things that are not aligning properly, we can work with the registrar, with Tara, and make sure that we get them right. To the extent that we can scribe things or put new rules in. We need you, if you find those things, even after the time of release on the 16th of May, to keep providing us with ways to make changes that are going to be more effective and efficient and better for students and their parents to review. So just keep in mind that the college itself, my office is working on those, and to contact me if you need to, and I will make sure it gets to the right place for us to make the changes we need to make this work effectively.
Hi, I'm Jean Garani, the program director for French, and I just replaced a faculty member this year. So one of the things that happened was my chair asked me for a list of current majors and minors, and so again, the problem is that some of the double majors we don't get the list, and so then somebody said, look at DegreeWorks, and there are 300 majors listed for French in DegreeWorks and 400 minors listed. But there's no way to, you'd have to go through every single person's name. And looking at that list, there were names from 2013, so that then this is not accurate. So how are you going to, who's going to refine the list so that it's accurate and up to date?
I'll take this question. She was mentioning in terms of pulling the list of your majors, because you can filter in DegreeWorks by major, minor, concentration. There are a lot of different avenues for filtering. But as far as the list in a degree auditing system, it's the nature of a degree auditing system. We are not necessarily data warehouse where we're archiving an enrollment, a dynamic enrollment report. You cannot look right now at DegreeWorks as your enrollment report. That's where we will really have to look toward data warehouse to pull dynamic or static enrollment reports. Right now, DegreeWorks, we are archiving records since our implementation in fall 13. Any student who's had a record in DegreeWorks system since fall 13, you may see that student's record if they had a DegreeWorks audit pulled during those years until the university makes a decision as to how we're going to archive our degree audit reports. Those audit reports will resume within DegreeWorks. What I will say is that with each individual audit report, you do have information in detail as to whether the student is an actively enrolled student. That information was a customization to our audit reports, degree audit reports, so that you could better recognize as to whether that's the student's enrollment status. But as far as lists are concerned, until we get to the reporting phase of DegreeWorks, and that is coming, that's more phase 2, we have CPA reports. You're really going to have to just pull down and scroll through and find your individual targeted student.
Thank you, Tara. And Tara, was obviously the spearhead with this entire program, and thank you for working on that. And I will just make one quick note. I know that we're continuing to debug DegreeWorks, and we are seeing some things that need to be addressed, but the progress is really wonderful. And thanks again to Flynn Hall and Aaron staff for helping that.
I wanted to say, if you do need a list of students, whether they're major or primary or secondary in French, I would recommend that you contact Flynn Hall, who can contact our office, and we can let them know the best way to pull that report. We want to make sure that they're in the loop so that we're kind of all getting the same type of communication.
I'll also go back to even earlier. I just wanted to say one thing about the DegreeWorks, and I think really the exceptions that are possible within DegreeWorks is really a powerful thing to do, that you make an exception, you find a mistake in there, you flag it once, and at least for that student, it's done forever. And so you don't have to go back. The parents will see that, yes, the advisor approved this, and that works very nicely. And I think they can pull all the exceptions to go back and see, oh, they've made 10 exceptions for this, we need to fix the rule. So I think, it's a little bit of training to learn how to use the exceptions, but once that's a round wheel to put on the square peg that I think really has worked very well for us.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to say something about the data warehouse that Jean was talking about, pulling the list. I can pull you a list of all of your majors. And when you're looking to see who's your first major and your second major, there's a column that says primary. If it has a Y, that means it's your first major. If it has an N, it means your second major. So just send me an email of exactly what you need, or anybody in here, and I think quite a few people have done that, and I'll pull you a list of what you need, and that way you can see it. Okay?
We've actually gone in, and that list of second majors no longer exists.
the primary list, the column isn't on there?
The secondary major has disappeared.
The column has?
What? That column's disappeared?
College 97 is additional major, and that is where that's where they'll show up.
College 97.
I didn't know the column had disappeared. However, even that one doesn't. What do you have to do with two? Apparently, the columns disappeared. It was there the other day.
One and some show up in the other. You have to combine them.
Well, I thought I had a solution.
I would say this is a great moment to point out how the standard training is going to help us out. We have early on in the Banner implementation, we identified key point people to hear about the implementation, to get information out. In a college like Arts and Sciences, it's very difficult to get the information out, especially a lot of that during the implementation. A lot of the information was changing rapidly. But now that we're a lot more stable, we can develop that module around pulling reports, and then those advisors that are qualified to pull those reports can do that, and that information will be in there.
Marty McCabe, Religious Studies. We've been trying to use DegreeWorks for several years now. I do some advising when the faculty isn't available. I know that for me, when DegreeWorks, it's rare that I have a student that it actually shows accurately what their courses are. And I'm frustrated, but usually they panic. I mean, usually they come in, just totally, freaked about it. And I say, okay, we're going to stop. We won't look at this anymore. We're closing this down. We're going to go to your transcript. We're going to go through the little checklist, and I'll show you you're okay. We're fine here. So I'm afraid that you put this live, that you can have a lot of, panicked kids running around there. The kids are the problem. The more adult students, they just get annoyed. And with the exceptions, it seems that for every student, there's always an exception. So you put in that exception. That doesn't mean that student's good to go. Next advisement period, there's another problem. You've got to put in another exception. Seems like a system where you have to fix a dozen problems for each person with exceptions isn't functioning. Now, if the advisor could themselves, at that moment, they're saying, okay, no, you're right, this is wrong. I'm going to go right in here to the editing module, and I'm going to fix this right now. Okay, see, I'm fixing it. We're putting it right where they belong. Everything's now where it belongs. Don't worry, we're set now. That would help if that could at all be possibly done. If this editing thing could be incorporated so that we could, right during the advisement period, say, okay, we're going to fix this, and we're good now. I don't know if that's possible. Yeah, I was notifying Dawn. I would be sending Dawn emails, please fix this, please. But that's using, it takes,
It has to be centralized, it has to be, otherwise we're going to have chaos. So the pathway that we have envisioned for this is to come to the college, come to the appropriate person with as many exceptions as your little minds can create, and we will implement them. Jennifer Shiver, Arts and Sciences Science side. Dawn Hiller, Arts and Sciences Art side.
I would make two additional comments, and one is just to reiterate what Lauren just said. If you have things that need looked at and debugged, we really need to make sure that Flint Hall is aware of those things. And the second thing is, let me just remind everyone that this degree audit system is really it's a national best practice, and it's everywhere. We are the only school in the SEC that does not offer a degree audit to our students. And so, what does that mean? That means that we need to take a look at our current curriculum, our current pathways, and how clear they are or how unclear they are. And we need to make sure that they're clear, and we have to really have these curriculum maps in place. So the comments made today about DegreeWorks are wonderful. We need to collect these. We have been collecting them, but we need to continue to collect them, and we need to work towards having these clear maps in place.
And I just want to add, I always wonder if the program or software that was chosen was a good choice. Is DegreeWorks any good? And I will tell you that nationwide it's very robust, and we are having problems that other places have either worked through or no longer have, and I would just encourage you to believe that. I think there's many times in our lives we face something new and it feels pretty rough in the beginning. The colleges that have adopted DegreeWorks and are using it right now are raving about it on this campus. It does work. It's just we're in that unpleasant period of adjustment.
Hi, I'm Mark Cooper in Film and Media Studies. DegreeWorks is working okay for me. I guess I may be the exception to the rule there. I want to ask about the EAB tool, and particularly the component that maps majors to careers. I know enough about the literature in that area to be profoundly skeptical of any predictive modeling there, and especially for the kinds of degrees in the College of Arts and Sciences. And yet I know that students and their parents are often hyper attentive to those kinds of predictions, and not well positioned to have appropriate skepticism about that. So could you talk about how you might be planning to introduce appropriate skepticism?
Absolutely, and this is something that we've talked about a fair amount. First of all, the platform is not student-facing. There is the opportunity to turn on a student-facing view that you would share with them that takes out all the risk coloring and risk notifications, so no one panics. If you want to use that information in a conversation. But in terms of that mapping, that is somewhat subjective, and we've recognized that. Our Career Center has reviewed it from the beginning, and they've recognized that as well. So we have not pushed that in any significant way to this point, and we are looking program by program, and we have the ability to customize that. So we can sit down with a program of study and say, okay, here is what is showing in EAB in terms of that career map. Does this make sense to you? And if you say no, then we take out 5 of the 10 options and adjust it. So there is the capability to adjust it based on your knowledge of what those likely careers would be. And maybe we're adding some as well.
Yeah, and so my concern is about students shopping majors and trying to, I don't believe, for example, that career outcomes are significantly different for English and history and film and media studies majors. They might move into different pathways, but salary levels and things look in long-term data the same, right? But a student trying to decide among those majors may be led to improperly weight that as a factor in the choice.
Right,
So
and I think that's why that aspect, among others, are not student-facing, because it's that advisor lens and that conversation that the data is intended to inform but not replace.
Okay.
Great question.
So, Mark, I have a question for you. Yeah. I put you on the spot. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. What we're doing by moving to this model where we have a university advising center and supporting what's going on around campus, one of the leaders is Florida State, and Mark was actually, I believe, involved in that process and on the committee there when they moved to quote-unquote centralized advising. And I just wondered if you could talk about that.
You want a testimonial? I found that, so I lived through this transition at Florida State, you're right, and I found that the quality of my conversations with major advisees improved dramatically because they were no longer worried about where they were, and I was not a course about counting credit hours and making sure requirements were fulfilled. It was really now a conversation about what they wanted to do with their degree. Were they taking full advantage of possibilities? I didn't have as much responsibility for advising students about courses I didn't know about in the core curriculum, which was an improvement, and more responsibility for advising students about courses I did know about in their major. So for me, it was an improved advising experience. I think the students had an easier time of it too.
Thank you.
I'm Robin Morris. I'm an undergraduate director in psychology. I wondered if you could say, I'm kind of shifting gears way back, if you could say a little bit more about how you envision this relationship between the advising center and the advising services within the department for those first-year students. Is the goal that the advising center will completely take up the first year advising? Or are we on a model where we're a coordinated team in first year advising? Or how do you kind of envision that working? And a more specific question for us is within our major, we have a progression requirement that students need to meet that happens right at the kind of end point for that is right at the end of the first year. So if you are taking over first year advising, would you be doing the evaluation of majors and notification of majors with respect to that progression requirement, or will that be part of the department?
Sure. Well, first of all, the first, second, and third part of the secret sauce here is that we have got to work together. So how do I envision the departments and the student services staff working with the first year advisors? Very, very closely. So, again, within their first week of employment, first or second week, I would love for them to come over and meet you.
Well, I should also say, our first year advisor is here. She's wonderful, and she's actually been working with us through our, we call it lower division.
Yay.
She's right
Is that
there.
Janai? Hi,
That's
Janai.
Too bad the rest of you. We got the best one. But she's been working with us on particularly on the system that we use for advising our first year students all through this process.
Great.
And that's been great.
Great.
But
Well,
again, the question is the goal that this eventually, that aspect of advising shifts away from us and to the advising center, or is the goal for us to build a model that continues this kind of team?
So I think the goal, of course, we're going to be in a period of transition next year, and Dr. Knapp is working with that transition. But yes, the goal is eventually for these 10 first-year advisors to do the advisement, from summer, fall, and spring so when they matriculate into their sophomore year, they would be assigned to these first-year advisors. Again, these first-year advisors need to be doing everything in tandem and step with the department, make sure that the department, knows who these people are, invite them to staff meetings, whatever you want.
Oh, we've already.
Good. And the other thing I'll mention,
We've already hooked her in.
Good. Well, that's what we want.
We've had her to faculty meetings. We've had her
Good.
to
That's what we
program
want.
meetings.
Just a couple other mentions, though, for those of you who don't have your first-year advisor here yet. Their offices are all on the third floor of Close Hip, but we are outfitting them with laptops so that they can be portable, and again, they can come over to your department if needed. And so sounds like you're already well underway with connecting Janai to your department, and that's exactly what we want. But yes, the hope here, the idea here is that we will have a fully professional staff model in the first year where these 25 are working with these students, again, through orientation all the way from fall into spring year. So,
great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you. Hello.
I'm Rebecca Stern. I'm the undergraduate director for English for another 6 weeks. I'm running away. I want to circle back, and this sort of follows up on Robin's question. In English, all of our faculty advise. Everyone advises. And I run a advising workshop, at the beginning of the year every year, and then usually a follow-up or refresher in the fall. You don't advise your first year. There's guidance. Rachel Corbett and I are there to help people out. What do you see the role of faculty being in, you mentioned something about faculty workshops. What do you see the role of faculty being in advising? And I'm just also imagining the nightmare of trying to get 60 faculty to take these modules if this is something that is now going to be required for faculty to sit down. I mean, it won't happen. So do you have suggestions for how to proceed in the behemoth of a department that is ours?
Yes. I would refer back to, again, those recommendations. And the 5th recommendation addresses exactly your question. So if we are moving towards a standardized professional staff advising model in the first year, meaning that those 25 will be actually doing the advisement, then where are faculty in that model? And we want to make sure that we have those opportunities available. So we have some suggestions on that, but we welcome new ideas. We want to make sure that faculty are connecting with our first-year students. As far as the module completion, that's the requirement for anybody who advises a first-year student. So given the fact that we've got this professional model in place, we're hoping that takes care of itself. But if we have other folks that are doing that, we got to make that a requirement. And part of this too, I'll remind folks that when this task force was formed, it was partly due to the amount of misadvisement that was occurring and the number of cases that were making its way to the provost's office. And so how do you reduce misadvisement? Well, you make sure everybody feels competent and trained, and we make sure we have clear pathways and all of that. So that's why this kind of standardized training model is being put into place.
So just to clarify, the faculty advisors within the department who are advising majors at the second, third, fourth year are going to continue, will be able to continue to do so?
Yes, we are, in addition to the first-year model, working on what's called a college advisement plan, again, outlined in the recommendations. And that college advisement plan is going to include a template where we, understand what will happen the sophomore year and beyond. And so, yes, we want to make sure that, quote-unquote, handoff into the sophomore year and beyond is clear for our students. And that's, again, something our first-year advisors can help explain to students in their meetings within that first year. Okay. Yes?
Just one other point. In terms of those first-year students, what do you imagine faculty doing with them? I mean, how do we plan for this? What should we actually have?
So I think there's a stack of these recommendations that might have something useful near to you, Rebecca. But if the professional staff advisors handle the first-year students, and then there's a handoff to sophomore, junior, and senior year, faculty can be involved there. If faculty want to be involved year one, which many do, some of the suggestions are things like you could have a monthly series where faculty meet with majors to talk about opportunities, whether it's in beyond the classroom, experiences during college, things to do over the summer, careers, grad school, that kind of mentoring. You could, if faculty want to be involved with the class of 2020, these incoming first-year students, they can do that in a mentoring, coaching role, and then be in an advising role years 2, 3, and 4. Those are the ideas that have come forth so far. If English has another idea that's consistent with that, that'd be super.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, on how that fits with my question is really when we get to orientation. And what I'm hoping is that doesn't get lost. Some of this doesn't get lost as we move forward in orientation. Right now, by the time I begin to see our majors on the end of their second day, it is the first time they've had a chance to really see their major, talk to their professors, see what's going on. If we now get to a point where they never get into the department and they go immediately to a first-year advisor someplace else, they will come away from being at Carolina and never talking to anyone in their department. And I am really concerned about that because a number of our students just get so excited. They're finally here, and we're talking about them, we're showing slides, integrating them into our faculty, that I can just see them being lost, and I'm really concerned about that.
I think that's a great point. Claire and Lauren, do y'all want to?
Sure. So again, as Lauren and I have talked, we envision orientation, and specifically day 2, to operate the same as it has in years past. So I do not envision any change to what happens with the students, as they've done the last couple of years with 2-day orientation. What we are doing, though, is getting these 10 first-year advisors to be involved with that process. So, as I understand it, Dawn and Jennifer, you have a really, key role with this and helping to oversee the messaging. And so we imagine this, being a support to what has happened previously. And I'll let you talk too.
Yeah, I would not want to interrupt the opportunity for our students to meet with existing faculty and departments. And in fact, what we'd like to do, and I think even in the first couple of years of this, is that the first-year advisors are going to learn by being there. So they're going to be there with you, they're going to be there with me, they're going to be talking with students and helping them enroll in classes. And even if they have multiple homes, multiple departments, we plan on trying to rotate them through so that they would interact with each and every department they're with at least once over the summer. But we do not plan on doing anything different in your encounter with the students. They're going to just sit with you.
Well, I guess what I really don't, I'm listening to the point then. So when we get them for that hour or bit of time,
Right.
an hour and a half, we're actually talking about our department, and then we're also doing the advising.
Yes.
And all of us are math, statistics, all of us are doing that at the same time in different
Right.
areas. So if we still have that 1 hour and a half time slot, and we have one advisor, first-year advisor is doing advising, and all of our students are in the separate sections learning about their own departments, how is that physically going to happen?
That's why rotation. We're going to have
So
1 week you get them, next, yeah. Right. You will continue to do the advising as you do every time, and we will put, I think Leslie is doing this? Yeah. And so Leslie has multiple departments that she deals with, including math and statistics. And when she gets a chance, the opportunity to work with them, she will work with them. Then she'll come back, rotate through you, and work with you again, so that she gets competent in doing the registration for all the students.
I'm not worried about her competency. She's great. I'm just worried about 2 years down the road when all of a sudden she's doing all the advising and we never get to see them. And that's
No.
really what I'm looking at.
No.
She's going to
No.
basically, it sounds like, and I could be totally wrong, you all still give your information, but at the end of the day, she's going to be accountable for the information that you gave to the student and check back with that student to make sure they have the information that they need and support the information that you already provided to the student. No?
Yes, so how this is being messaged in other colleges is, we're going to have these first-year advisors stand up at some point on day 2, in the group session and say, "Hi, I am your first-year advisor. I may or may not get a chance to meet you today or advise you today because there's a really short period of time and we have a lot of students. However, I will be working with you this year." So again, exactly as Lauren illustrated, we know that our first-year advisors cannot possibly advise all students, all first-year students on that day 2 of orientation. So that's why we're saying across, not only arts and sciences, across all of the colleges, it will operate the same way that it has these last several years. If nothing else, the students will get to at least see who their first-year advisor will be. So, yeah. We know there's such a condensed period of time on day 2, and there'd be no way, again, that our first-year advisors could do all of that. So.
Jerry Mitchell, I'm Department of Geography and also Dean's Advisor. And I know I'm going to sound like the old guy who walked to school in the snow 2 miles uphill and all that. But I'm assuming most of this group, like me, was able to survive a number of degrees without a degree audit. I know Carolina Core very, very well, and that's because I can read. My students do not because they don't. So I'm wondering about that 6th recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the concrete actions? I wish it wasn't 6th. I wish it was number 1 that talks about student responsibility. Could you say something about what are the plans other than make sure you go to your appointment on time?
We envision some modules that are required. We envision some quizzes that are required, something along the lines to make sure that students are aware. In the survey that we did with students, we asked a number of questions, but one in particular was, do you know how to prepare for advisement? And a follow-up open-ended question with, what can you do? If you were to come in prepared, what does that look like? And it's just really clear they have no idea. And we think maybe they should, but, we got bring a resume, okay? Bring, general questions. We need to move towards some tangibles. So, for example, when degree audit is up and running, this will enable them to take action before they come into advising and come in prepared. So I think we need to start with messaging. We need to start with expectation. We have training modules or modules out there for other things like, Haven and Alcohol EDU, and we should do something with advising as well. So.
And I just want to say we will do something, and we will do something in the next 4 months. Students will be hit with the module. They'll be hit with expectation. They'll be driven to the bulletin. We won't get to this next year. This will happen in the beginning. We had a student on the ACT task force, Clay Armstrong. Some of you may know him. He's a poli-sci econ major. Toughest guy in the room. His expectations for students were strong. He was specific. And we will have the support of student government on this. So they will be, there'll be resources in place for them and expectations as well.
And again, I'll mention the 6th recommendation has some of those specific things that are outlined, and things like online modules, student checklists, and the messaging at New Student Orientation. We'd love to add to this, though, if you have other ideas.
Elena Levina from Biology. What do you think should be connection between first-year advisors and Career Center? And we discussed a lot of problems, how to pursue toward the goal to graduating for years and something. One of the biggest issue is changing major, because everybody comes as pre-med students, choosing biology, sitting there, and after that we need to fix and figure out and let them know somehow that you're seeing Biology 101 as something, is a flag, and the sooner the better you will adjust your decision or something. So, and the easiest way to do some sort of testing during the orientation period and not sign up everybody blindly into pre-med students, but give them some other choices because they have no clue what other choices are. So any ideas in this direction, please?
Yes, so again, the EAB software has a really easy way for advisors to refer to the Career Center, and we highly encourage that, especially for those major exploration students. I'm in discussion with Tom Hallis, the director of the Career Center. We're going to bring them in to do training with the 25 first-year advisors. We would invite anybody who advises that has an interest in that to join us on that training. But you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that students who are changing their major are doing so in an informed way. Take the resources, the self-assessments that the Career Center offers, and then in addition understands progression requirements and curricular requirements, and helping to make sure that they're making good decisions. So yeah, the Career Center is an essential part. Yeah.
One of the things I look forward to in this is that everything's taken care of, because right now it's a little unfair to the students in the sense that not even experienced advisors always know that AP and transfer courses cannot count as an overlay. They can only count in one area. They do not know that there's all kinds of bizarre stuff like that. You need 3 hours in the overlay category that did not overlay with anything else except another overlay, and you have paragraphs that explain it. The one place that this gets a little tricky, though, is the Honors College, because the Honors College can approve anything they freaking want for general ed. And so how do you picture the three-way overlay between the Honors College advisement, the department advisement, and you, especially since currently none of us undergraduate directors actually get to see the Honors College kids unless we go out of our way and force the Honors College to let us?
Yeah.
Well, we try, but we have to really...
Well, one thing I'll mention is the three kind of groups that you mentioned there, the department advisor, the university advising center, and the Honors College. I want to reiterate that these first-year advisors will be your departmental advisors, right? We're working together on that. They're learning the curriculums from you and that kind of thing. So please, we want to make sure that's seamless. As far as the Honors College is concerned, I don't know if I have a great answer. I know that this is something that continues to come up. I'm in discussions with Sandra Kelly and others just to, understand kind of all the dynamics at play here. Again, I don't imagine anything changing, as the way it is currently. But I do know that it's a concern for folks. So.
Just a quick comment. I think that we have kind of been targeting first-year students as incoming freshmen. I would also like to make sure that everyone is completely clear on transfer students, which are increasing in numbers with every passing year, and that the advising of those is far beyond first year for a student as a freshman. and often is very confusing. So there's going to be a role over time, I think, of really learning not just first-year curriculum, but curriculum that can take you to advising a person with 75 hours who maybe doesn't even want to be in the College of Arts and Sciences and or doesn't want to be in a particular major and doesn't want to follow the directions. It's going to take a little while to get the first-year advisors up to speed with the transfer. So that's another thing that I think we need to keep in mind as we are preparing them for this onslaught that comes over the summer, because this college gets about 45 to 50% of all the transfer students in arts and sciences. So that's going to be close to 700 or 800 people that are first-year students.
But you are saying they will be?
They will advise. First year means first year.
Including the transfer from the start.
So we will not be able to advise our transfer students who are transferring and juniors and expect to graduate in our department in the next year.
You will be advising them, along with
After the first year.
Is what it sounds like.
After the first year, they will then go and be your advisees alone. Right. Correct.
They're being advised for their senior year, including their senior check.
By you.
In the first year. No, in the first year by them.
No, by you. They're still going to work with you. They're there, sitting by your side.
I thought you said that we couldn't advise people in the first year. They did.
Transfer students, yeah, how do you want to deal with that? Okay? Because first-year students are first-year students, and you would have to advise them. And they would have to be there with you for transfer days, which are different days and different qualities.
My question is, as I understand it, the system is that first-year advisement, professional advisors, have exclusive advisement for first-year students.
Including
Without us.
is what it sounds like.
Well, it could be without you if you decide not to take the modules. But if you could take the modules, you could advise first-year students as well.
Okay, so the departmental faculty must take the modules.
So the professional advisors among you here today are going to be required, if you want to do first-year students, to finish these modules. You're going to have that knowledge base. And then
Someone in the department must be certified first year. Every department must have a certified first year. Will that certified first year advisor be required to cover 30 hours of advice?
Maybe we should take this one offline.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would say if you would like to stay after, we could talk more one-on-one about it and to clear this up. And I know we are right at time. If we could have maybe one more question.
I have
Sure.
one question about degree works.
Yes.
So our biochemistry major, about 30% of them are honors college students. And when I look at degree works for them, the major is perfect, thank you. Honors college requirements, it's all over the board. Is that going to be fixed for them? Because if they're going to start seeing it, they're going to freak out when they don't think that they have their honors college requirements, when if you go through the actual checklist, because I can read, they do have it. So, I mean, what, is that going to...
To give an overview with honors college requirements, and I'm sure you're the subject matter expert as far as advising is concerned, and you've seen their approval process.
Right.
Honors college courses are approved by the term.
Right.
One thing about that is that we had to integrate that into the process with degree work starting in fall of 13. We took the list from honors college and we folded those over into the system as best we could.
Right.
The way we're handling that is term by term, and trying to identify as many courses as we can, as best we can, based on the requirements. One issue that we have with those honors college courses is that not all the courses are flagged in Banner System with an attribute. Attributes help us to assign and target and filter courses. So with that being said, is that we'll just have to monitor over time. I think this will ease with time. As we move further along, we're working with Honors College. I'm working with Dr. Sandra Kelly and Honors College staff and advisors to identify like better ways to track the coursework, but it's really just going to take at least another year implementation just to get that process smooth. But I think we're on the right track, but it's just the nature of how courses are approved by the Honors College.
I think we had planned to end at 1, and we've already gone over 20 minutes. That's a credit to you all. I really appreciate your interest and questions. I think Claire and I have a 1:30, but those of us who can stay will be up here to answer questions. And please send questions to Lauren and Flynn Hall and to Claire also. And if I can be helpful, I'd be happy to. Thanks again for your time, and enjoy the rest of the day.